Karima, I just want to start first of all with just the small point I wanted to just get out of the way. Every time we question the Deputy Secretary General, she goes on about the media being the one that's accusing, some ANC members of corruption. Why does she keep imposing this as if the media is finding all this information from nowhere?
Look, I think that politicians love shooting the messenger. It's easier to shout down a reporter than it is to argue with an officer of the criminal justice system and of the court. And I think that what it is also a testimony to, Masego, is the fact that particularly during the state capture years and also now during COVID-19, the media really consistently, were able to shine a light on malfeasance and wrongdoing. If you look, for example, at the Gupta Gate email saga, it was the media that actually revealed the extent to which President Jacob Zuma was taking instructions from the Guptas and the way in which state institutions were hollowed out for the personal financial gain of the former president, his friends and his family. And I think that if you look at Jessie Duarte, if you look at Julius Malema, if you look at even the Democratic Alliance, Patricia de Lille, whenever politicians face allegations of wrongdoing, it's convenient to shoot the messenger. The problem for them, of course, is that the allegations don't go away, and increasingly more and more law enforcement agencies too have to explain to the nation why they're dragging their feet on some of these cases that have been so widely reported on. So I think we must brace ourselves as reporters. We are going to actually face more of this, and we just have to continue to do our job. It's our job to hold them accountable, and I think for as long as our work is based on fact and on accurate information that's verifiable, then they will have to account, and hopefully soon corrupt people will have to account in courts of law rather than in the court of public opinion.
Now, of course, the NEC meeting happened. We knew that it was going to be a fiery meeting after that letter from President Cyril Ramaphosa last week, followed by the calls from some in the NWC calling for him to step down, and then the letter from the former president basically telling him that he had no right. One of the key issues in that letter, or rather in the agenda, was the meeting on economic reconstruction and, of course, the income grant for 18 to 59-year-olds. They're talking about this even more now. Are we seeing probably some policy changes?
You raise a very important point, Masego, because we've been so focused on the corruption aspect, and of course the ANC is suffering huge reputational damage on that. But the other issue that the governing party can't get away from are the economic hardships that South Africans are facing. Our unemployment rate is through the roof. COVID-19 has resulted in, thousands of people losing their jobs, businesses not being able to come, out of the slump that they've been put in. And remember, our economy was in trouble even before the lockdown. So the question of economic reconstruction is very important. When President Ramaphosa announced level 2 lockdown regulations were going to be implemented, he promised South Africans that the government was also going to engage in a massive economic plan for the country. And that was the other business, and that is the other business, because the meeting isn't done, that is occupying the agenda of the African National Congress. And in the minutes which were leaked to us, at the start of the meeting, it's very clear that there is a sense of urgency in the ANC, because they are obviously feeling the pinch in terms of the economic situation. So Enoch Godongwana, who's the head of the Economic Policy Committee in the ANC, has indicated that they're busy with a costing exercise of the basic income grant. And remember, there's organizations such as COSATU, the South African Communist Party, and a whole host of civil society and social justice movements that have been pushing for an alternative economic policy response to the crisis. And it's interesting because it looks as if the idea of an economic income grant or an economic relief package for people is beginning to gain traction in the ANC. And according to the minutes, the NEC has instructed the ETC under the leadership of Enoch Godongwana to fast track the costing exercise so that the report can be tabled in the NEC, and the NEC is the highest decision-making structure between conferences, so that the ANC can decide what it is to do. My understanding is also that the President will very shortly address the country in his capacity as State President on two key issues. One is the corruption, and one is the economic package. So I think those that are watching, economic growth and, of course, policy initiatives need to take very keen interest in the debates around the basic income grant in the ANC and in the ruling alliance, because it could well signal a departure from our existing policy, which of course has implications for our economy, Masego.
You talk about the President probably addressing the nation this week. In his agenda, when he addresses us, could there be anything about maybe a cabinet reshuffle?
It's very interesting that you say this. Yesterday afternoon, the financial news agency Bloomberg, who normally don't, write about ANC matters and reshuffles unless it relates to finance, had a story that there is potentially a cabinet reshuffle on the cards, and that the President is in fact consulting. When I saw this, I did some homework among some members in the cabinet and in the ANC, and it seems as if the Finance Minister Tito Mboweni have communicated with officials in the African National Congress. There are two versions. The one says that he's resigned, he's officially written his resignation letter as a member of Cabinet and as a member of the NEC, and has been asked to put that matter on hold following the discussions over the weekend, to allow the President to of course report this to the officials and also the alliance partners. The other version is that when he was chastised by President Ramaphosa on Monday of last week in the presidential letter, where the President indicated to us that he was deeply unhappy with Tito Mboweni's comments about the way in which the Zambian government had dealt with its central bank governor, everybody is saying that Tito Mboweni had sent a message to the chairperson of the party, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, indicating his unhappiness. So there is certainly indications that Tito Mboweni's continued presence in the cabinet and in the NEC is up for grabs. And as you know, the Finance Minister doesn't really like talking to local media. He prefers to speak to international news agencies. So I'm not surprised that Bloomberg is running this information, because historically, he is keen to engage with them. So people involved in watching our markets and so on will obviously have to take note of this. When I checked with a couple of people in the NEC and people also working with Tito Mboweni, the common refrain from a lot of them was that he's a maverick, he's an individualist, he's seeking attention, etc., etc. So there is also this perception that the Finance Minister is, a guy who's not necessarily a team player. Now remember, a lot of financial analysts think that that's a good thing, because he can kind of stand his ground against others in the cabinet and in the ANC, NEC. But in the party political system, if you don't function within the unit, it's hard for you to retain your job, because you are deployed by your party. You're not directly elected. So I think definitely we need to look out for, whether Tito Mboweni is going to make good on his threats to leave the African National Congress and also Cabinet. And certainly when that does happen, the Finance Ministry is a big ministry, so it will occasion the option for the President to introduce change if he wants to. The big question, of course, is who, if he does go, Tito Mboweni, who is likely to replace him, and what are, the market analysts likely to make of such a person, and also the ANC's alliance partners. We just spoke about the basic income grant. We know that someone like Tito Mboweni isn't necessarily in favor of that. So if there is policy change on the basic income grant, it will be interesting to see which finance minister will be chosen by the President, because this is a person that is historically seen to be the face of the country's economic policy, which is of course a highly contested thing in the ANC. So I think over and above the issues around corruption, I think also the question around whether we're going to have a new finance minister is something that we need to keep a very keen eye on.
I was actually going to say, I know that they're saying we're running out of time. I was actually going to say, when you hear about a cabinet reshuffle and a key position like the finance department, I, as a South African, get very scared because I don't know who the ANC can actually put on, in those very key positions. But I just want to ask you just one more quick question. Earlier, you were talking about the agenda that was leaked to us. Of course, we know that the president's letter must have been discussed. He then said that he would definitely take himself to the Integrity Committee to talk about that CR17 funding that made him become president. And then the ANC-SG, Ace Magashule, who was giving us the runaround last week, now there's confirmation that he's also going to the Integrity Commission. It's like there's a competition of who's better.
I think you are kind of hitting it on the nail. You must remember that the politics in the ANC is deeply factionalized. You would have seen the fake news stories that the president is going to resign, that he's going to be replaced by, Lindiwe Sisulu, that Jewel Neshitenzi is going to take over from Ace Magashule. Both groups of people are involved in a very intense war around their perceived strength and who's got the upper hand in the organization. I think, though, one needs to, from a strategic perspective, give President Cyril Ramaphosa kudos for outflanking his opposition in the African National Congress. When he delivers his political report, which is custom, he used the opportunity unsolicited to say, listen, there's been all these rumors around party political funding inside the ANC for the presidency. I'm going to go to the Integrity Committee and speak about this. So he informed them. And of course, once your president does that, it's very hard for other senior officials, whether they're in the top 6 or in the NEC, to then say, we're not going to go before the Integrity Committee. And the reason why this is important is, remember last week, we ran the story that the Integrity Committee had actually summoned Ace Magashule for this very weekend to come. And they say in the letter that, they know that the NEC is now sitting in a special gathering. He needs to come at a time that's convenient. And the ANC spokesperson, Pule Mabe, of course, saying that, he didn't receive that letter. But we know for a fact that both Mr. Magashule's PA as well as his office manager were copied and emailed in that. So I think that the machinations around whether he's going to go or not go has now come to an end, because Cyril Ramaphosa has essentially thrown down the gauntlet. It's going to be very hard, not just for him, but your Mosebenzi Zwanis, your Pongani Bongos, your Nomvula Mokonyanis, who, for example, told the Zondo Commission of Inquiry that, Bosasa had never paid for any birthdays. Last week, evidence came out at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, that put a lie to what she said. And tomorrow morning, her former PA testifies at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. So another very senior ANC, NEC member and NWC member, Nomvula Mokonjane, finding herself in very hot water, not just perhaps with the African National Congress, but also with law enforcement agencies, because if it is established as a fact that she did indeed lie about the fact that they had paid for her 40th birthday party, she could soon face, charges. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if someone such as Nomvula Mokonjane potentially faces criminal charges for having lied in front of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry.
Well, political analyst Karima Brown, thank you very much. I mean, if we had to talk about the ANC, I think we'd take more time than we have right now, but unfortunately I have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.